Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're just going to give it a couple moments here for folks to join us. Just give it a minute or two here. But while we're waiting to start, if you could share with us where you are joining from today. So folks, feel free to put that in the chat, in the comments below, and we'll get started momentarily. Hey everyone, if you're just hopping on with us, welcome. We're so glad you're here. We're going to get started in a few moments, but as we're waiting for folks to join us, you can share in the comments below where you're joining us from today, maybe your name, something you're hoping to learn in this call. We're really excited that you're here. All right, and for folks who are just joining, welcome. We'll get started momentarily. If you want to share where you're joining us from, that would be amazing. And I think we can probably go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Miranda Ehrlich. I use she, her pronouns, and I am Sierra Club's Federal Field Director. And today we are here to talk about some really exciting major news that broke this week that Senator Manchin and Leader Schumer have come to an agreement on a deal for what is the latest version of the Climate, Jobs, and Justice Bill that we've been fighting for over a year now, which is now called the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. We're going to hear from a few different folks today who have been working really hard on this at the Sierra Club. We're going to hear some opening remarks from Sierra Club President Ramon Cruz. So glad you could join us today, President Cruz. We'll also hear from Hiba Kassim, the director of the Living Economy program at the Sierra Club, and from Bill Price, who is a senior organizing manager with the Sierra Club in West Virginia. And again, for folks who are just joining, welcome. We're so glad you could hop on here with us today. We're about to talk through the news about the latest version of the Climate, Jobs, and Justice Bill that we've been fighting for. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Sierra Club President Ramon Cruz to tell us a bit more about what happened this week.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Miranda. Can you all hear me okay? Okay, good. Well, welcome, everybody. It's great to be here with you, and great to be in this context. As you all know, and as Miranda mentioned, this week there was a very surprising, best kept secret U-turn from Senator Joe Manchin that changed course and announced his support for a climate, jobs, and justice bill that and did that alongside Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer from Brooklyn, New York, where I am right now in Canarsie territory. So this bill, known as the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, will put the U.S. on a path to roughly 40% emissions reduction by 2030, and would represent the single largest climate investment in U.S. history. So by far, the biggest climate investment we have had, and doing this also, while at the same time helping, to address inflation and reducing energy costs for families. So, this momentum, is a testament to, our volunteers, organizers, and folks like all of you that have worked tirelessly to advocate for a strong bill that takes action on climate, on jobs, and justice. And so together we have organized countless lobby visits, in these last year, 2 years, and even before that, depending when you start, counting on that, right? But all these, visits, the action parties, the rallies, you all made tens of thousands of calls to Congress, and sent even more messages, right? So our people powered movement across the country simply refused to take no for an answer, and put the eyes on the prize, right? So having said all these, I'm going to be honest with you, there are, of course, some provisions of this bill that will be very hard to swallow, including handouts to the fossil fuel industry. And so Sierra Club will continue the fight, against these provisions, and against, the same way that we have done our fight, along the way. And, at the same time, it is important to recognize that on balance, this legislation is a huge step forward for climate action and will position us to keep fighting for stronger investments and policies to bring about the more livable future that we all deserve. So, with that, I'll pass it back to you, Miranda. And again, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Ramon, for those remarks. And I just want to put a finer point on something you said here. This is about people power. This is about the movement that made this possible. It is the actions that you all are taking together to organize that made this moment even possible. And our movement is only growing stronger from here. And so just really want to reiterate that. I'm now going to pass it to Heba Kassem, the director of Sierra Club's Living Economy program, to tell us more about the details of what exactly is in this bill.
Thanks, Miranda. Thanks, Ramon. So as Miranda and Ramon both have said, we were very surprised with this announcement on Wednesday afternoon. We were not expecting this. As Ramon said, the best kept secret in the history of secrets in Congress. So Wednesday, we got word that a bill was coming out. Wednesday evening, the text came out, and our team quickly got together and analyzed 725 pages to the best of our ability without a section by section. Usually Congress gives us section by sections to make it a little bit easier to digest the information. So top line, this includes $369 billion in clean energy and climate programs over the next 10 years. And as Miranda said, would be the single biggest climate investment in US history by far. It puts us on a path forward to reducing about 40% emissions by 2030, which is huge. And as Ramon said, there's some good and there's some bad. Unfortunately, that's what happens when we're forced into negotiations with someone like Senator Joe Manchin. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the details. Like I said, it's 725 pages, so I'm just going to highlight some of the things, but there are a lot of programs in this and a lot of funding. So for the good, the package has provisions that move us towards incorporating cross-cutting environmental equity and labor standards into public investment, ensuring accountability. We got game-changing investments of hundreds of billions of dollars in tax credits for clean energy like solar and wind, clean transportation, decarbonizing buildings, domestic clean manufacturing. And this will all lower emissions, create family-sustaining jobs, and reduce energy costs for over a decade. Methane fee, we got the methane fee. This is a big one. The methane emissions reduction program will improve methane monitoring, funding environmental restoration, and help communities reduce health effects of pollution and increase their climate resilience. We also got about $60 billion in environmental justice funding, which will help promote legacy pollution reduction, affordable and accessible clean energy for frontline communities, and better quality of life and good jobs. This includes environmental and climate justice block grants, air pollution monitoring, clean heavy-duty vehicles, and a number of other programs. Like we said, unfortunately, there are some things that will be hard for us to swallow. So the package includes provisions that could lock us into federal oil and gas leasing on public lands and waters for decades. These provisions do not meet Sierra Club's vision for our public lands, and which can and must be used as an integral part of the solution to the climate crisis. Mandating oil and gas lease sales and tethering them to build out clean energy deployment and continuing to prop up the fossil fuel companies that are responsible for the dual crises of inflation and climate change is the last thing we should be doing in the name of addressing these crises. Other things that were left out that we really fought for was the Civilian Climate Corps, funding for lead pipes. We did get that in the IJA fund and the IJA bill, but we were hoping to also secure some funding in the reconciliation package. We lost things on like high-speed rails and some other programs that we've been fighting for. I will turn it back to Miranda.
Thank you so much, Hiba. And yeah, I also just want to reiterate too, like, there is a lot to love in this bill, and there is also a lot of disappointment. The bill is far from perfect, but at the same time, 5 years ago, most of us would not have thought this was possible. Our movement of movements has changed the game in making climate a top priority for the Democratic Party, and we've made sure that they know inaction is not an option. And this is what we're seeing here, this movement on a lot of these pieces that we really like. This is the rewards of our persistent grassroots pressure, and our movement is only growing stronger from here. And so I'm going to turn it over now to Bill Price, who's a senior organizing manager in West Virginia, to share a bit more about how this bill is going to benefit communities in West Virginia and what folks on the ground need in this moment in the wake of flooding this week in Eastern Kentucky and West Virginia. So, Bill, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Miranda. I'm so happy to be with everyone today during this, I will say, historic moment in the climate fights. I'll start off with, what can you say about Joe Manchin? Joe's been my senator for many years now, and just about when you think you just want to give up on him, he will come back and surprise you and do some good things. We have a ways to go here. I'll feel a lot better once this bill is on the president's desk and being signed by the president. In the meantime, we need to contact senators in your home states, and for those who may be joining us from West Virginia, yes, even Joe Manchin, to tell him that there is support for this bill. What we're hearing is that the opposition is working on him, and we certainly do not want any backsliding. For those in Appalachia and other places, you may know what that means, by Joe Manchin. And we think the way to do that is so that he understands that West Virginians do support this bill, even with its not great aspects of it. One aspect of the bill that I do want to point out that has not been so much in the news media is the fact that the bill does fund the permanent extension of the Black Lung Benefits Fund. Organizers, including Bonnie and Swinford in Tennessee, have been working in coalitions to get that done for many months and even years. And so that is will be a major victory that will support the miners who sacrifice their health and their lives in many cases to bring energy to the country. Our organizing team in Appalachia and the Sierra Club is committed to continuing to work to be sure that miners are a part of the new cleaner economy. This fund will go a long ways to protection of that health. Finally, I do want to make the point around the importance of this work and just show appreciation to everyone who's already taken action on it, and will continue to take action until we get this passed over to the president's desk. Climate change is real. It is having direct impacts to frontline community people across the country, and particularly here today in Eastern Kentucky. Right now, Eastern Kentucky is experiencing the worst flash flooding in history. While that flooding has always been a part of the Appalachian experience, we are now seeing more intensive and more incidents of flooding. We have 16 deaths currently that we know of in Eastern Kentucky from that flooding. And we need to it is past time, in fact, that we make the investments needed to mitigate the impacts. Finally, if you wish to donate to an Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund, that is on your screen. The East Kentucky Flood Relief Fund is a local, often under-resourced fund that is doing direct mutual aid work in Eastern Kentucky. There are other organizations, so go to Apple Shop, wherever you want to go to, if for some reason you have another funding source you want to use. But this is a valuable Eastern Kentucky local organization that I feel very strongly people should be giving to. Just a note, they are experiencing some issues with their PayPal right now. So you might want to just keep on trying until you get through. They're working on that, but as you might imagine, they've got a lot of things on their plate right now. Thank you again, Miranda and everyone. And let's keep working it. We will get this done.
Thank you so much, Bill. And yeah, as folks can see at the bottom of the screen, there's a link there to the Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund. So please take a look at that and make a donation if you can. Again, want to reiterate, really important point Bill made there. This is a major breakthrough, but we still have a long way to go. This bill is not finalized. It is not passed yet. We need to keep up the pressure and keep organizing and not rest until the ink is dry. And so I'm going to pass it now back to Hiba to talk us through what is happening next, what to expect in the coming weeks as this bill moves forward through Congress. So Hiba, back to you.
Thanks, Miranda. Yeah, it's not over. We can't celebrate yet. As Bill said, we want this to go to the president's desk and be officially signed into law. So the next week is very critical. The Senate has already moved the legislative text to the birdbath, which means that they will be scrubbing it in front of the parliamentarian. And after that, it will move to a process called Vote-A-Rama, which is a little bit wacky of a process that we have. And it's a very long process, could be a day, 2 days, 3 days, where senators can introduce unlimited amendments. We are anticipating Republicans to introduce some crazy amendments, unlikely to make it in. We need 50 votes. We don't. The Republicans are in the minority. After that process, it'll go to the Senate floor for an official vote. And we're looking at possibly by later next week, maybe early the week after. I just heard on a call that Republicans do not want to work over the weekend. Surprise, surprise. Climate deniers don't want to do any work. And then after that, it'll go through the process in the House, and it'll take a few days to go through there. And then they are in recess right now, but I believe Speaker Pelosi will call them back for a special session, vote it out of the House floor, and then it'll go to President Biden's desk and signed into law. So that means we have to keep pushing the Senate to pass it through the Senate, and then the House to pass it through the House, and then for Biden to officially sign it. It could be signed into law in the next few weeks if we keep pushing and it makes it through. I will pass it back to Miranda.
Thank you, Hiba. Once again, just to repeat this again, this is a major breakthrough. It is a really exciting moment, but this is not a done deal. We've got to push this across the finish line while preserving all of the good things that we love in this bill, while also pushing back against some of these bad provisions. It is grassroots organizing that has gotten us this far, and it is continued grassroots pressure that will get this done. So I'm going to ask everybody on this live right now, call your senators now at 1-855-980-2275, or you can text senators to 69866 to get the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 across the finish line. Once again, we're asking you all to call your senators now. The number is at the bottom of the screen, and we're going to keep running that through as we go through the next section. I also want to invite everybody. I'm sure you all have a lot of questions. I know I had a ton of questions when I first heard this news, and so we are going to now move to a Q&A segment. We're going to try to answer as many as we can. So we encourage you to put those questions in the chat. And let me see, what do we have as our first question? So one question we're getting, I think, is about might be about some of these concerning provisions that folks have been talking about fossil fuel companies. The question is, are funds going to fossil fuel companies hinged on their investment in clean energy. I think this is a question related to the leasing tethering provision. Hiba, would you be able to answer this question?
Yeah, thanks, Miranda. I'm actually double checking with our expert on staff about this just to make sure that I have it right. It's a big bill that gets a little bit complicated. And I don't want to give the wrong answer because I don't believe so, but I'm double checking.
And if something to clarify on the leases, that the way that leases work, it's important to notice here that leases is not the final part. A lease means people, companies have to auction them. So there, for example, what we saw in Alaska recently, with in the Trump years, they issued leases. We were able to mobilize and to put pressure on banks not to finance those. So that means that we're going to fight with all the tools we can so that these leases are not bought, so that these leases are not financially. What we're starting to see in the market is that they think it twice. Investors think it twice because they know the future is not there. So we need to put the pressure. I'm not saying again this is a given. It's just it's a front where we'll continue to put pressure on.
Yeah, just to build on what Ramon just said, yeah, there are a lot of concerning provisions that are in this bill, but there are also a lot of good investments in clean energy that are not related to the fossil fuel pieces.
Thank you both for that. We got another question here, which is, what made Joe Manchin change his mind? I'm wondering. I think that's the $1 million question here, but I don't know, Ramon. Maybe you want to try this one, or maybe Bill.
I wish I had that privilege, power to get into his mind, because so far we have seen him going all over the place, and in the meetings, whenever we had in the past, be in front of him, it's difficult to predict what he would do. What I would say though is that this movement has been clear, with the eyes on the prize and expressing our priorities, right? And so we know how he, the level of influence that the fossil fuel industry has with him in the past, in his family, in the way he carries his life. So we need to be stronger. We need to be louder. We need to be, and that's what matters the most. So what made him change his mind? I would like to think that doing the right thing, investing in the future, not only of our environment, also in the economy of the future. West Virginia, if we think about it, the coal is the technology of the 19th century. We want to move to 21st century. So I hope those things play out there. But the fact is, we have a bill in front of us that could make a lot for our agenda. Let's bring it to the finish line.
Fabulous. Thanks, Ramon. If anyone else wants to jump in, Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, I quit trying to figure Joe Manchin's brain out years ago. It will drive you crazy if you keep trying to do that. So let's just take advantage of this moment that we have his ear and working. But Joe Manchin's always has been, when he was the governor, has been since he's been the senator, an enigma. So you just want to work with him when you can, and don't work with him when you can't.
Thank you for that, Bill. Well said. Wise words. So another question that we're getting is, folks are looking for a little more detail on what difference is this bill going to make in people's lives? What difference will this bill make for me is the question. And so Hiba, I'm wondering if you could share a little bit more about some of the ways that this bill will make a difference for everyday people.
Yeah, this will make a difference in a number of ways. We did do an analysis with the House passed bill that had like real world benefits. I think we can do that again with this bill. That one had about $600 billion. So this will lower energy costs for families, utility bills, right? It'll fight the climate crisis and reduce emissions. We're on a path. We're finally on a real path to reduce 40% of emissions by 2030, which is huge. The EJ investments are huge. This will help families and communities across the country who have been burdened by the climate crisis for decades. Trying to think what else. Also, there's the healthcare piece in the bill, so it's not just a climate bill. We will lower healthcare costs, which is an added benefit that we are supportive of. I don't know if Bill or Ramon want to talk about specifics, Bill, in your state, how this will benefit West Virginians.
I already mentioned the Black Lung Benefits Act, which I think is a major piece that makes a major difference in people's lives here in Appalachia, former coal miners and their families particularly. I want to keep touting that. I also want to say that high energy bills in West Virginia and in Appalachia are a factor, and anything that this can do to help lower those bills will be very helpful.
And I'll just add, that, in terms of what it means to what difference can this make, it's our ability to fight the climate crisis, so it's not only on reducing emissions, but it's also about fighting the impacts of the heat waves that we are experiencing, the drought, the wildfires, these stronger storms that we're getting, the floods. So there is a lot about that, and also funding that that would be flowing to frontline communities, right? So that's in line with the president's Justice for It commitments, and then the funding also as well for tribal communities, for urban communities, urban parks, etc. So there are many things here that are really life changing that I think can be perceived in everyday life for many people, especially in frontline communities.
Thank you all so much. And I'll just add too, another, this is called the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. And I think there is some truth there, because clean energy, especially when we're investing in it, we're moving towards clean energy, that will be lowering energy costs for folks. And so that's also an added benefit as well. So yeah, lots of really exciting things here. And I think we're going to probably go ahead and wrap up, but just wanted to say one more time, thank you for being in this fight with us. Thank you for all of the amazing organizing you have been doing up until this point. And it is not the time to let up now. So please call your senators at 1-855-980-2275 and make sure they know they need to pass the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. And make sure you check out the link at sc.org/flood relief to donate to the Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund for folks that are being directly impacted by this flooding. And Bill, if you'd like to jump in, go ahead.
Yeah, and keep trying that. I know we hear that they're experiencing some problems with their PayPal. We've got people on the ground trying to work with them on that, but if you can't get through right away, just keep trying. It's very important that these people are, I am sorry, I'm going to start crying. These people need our help.
100%. Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you everyone today for joining us. Thank you to our lovely speakers for being on, and we will be talking again with you soon here. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.